Hello, Ladislas Maurice from The Wandering Investor here. Today, I'm really excited about this topic. We're going to be discussing real estate in Kiev, Ukraine. For the people who follow me, you know that I'm interested in real estate, and Ukraine is one of my favorite markets out there and one of my favorite countries on a personal basis. I enjoy spending time in Ukraine, and I'm here with an expert when it comes to real estate in Kiev, Jdsuggitt from the Kiev Real Estate Recovery Fund. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me and for speaking with me today. It's my pleasure.
Fantastic. So John is the managing director of that real estate fund that specializes in Kiev real estate, and he's been living on and off in Ukraine for over a decade now.
20 years.
20 years. Okay, so you know the market very well, in and out.
I hope so.
And
Yes.
I think we're going to have an interesting conversation because I have quite a few questions. So for the audience, we're going to break down this conversation into 3 different parts. First one will be why Ukraine. The second one will be why real estate in Kiev. And the third one will be John discussing his fund.
Okay.
Great. John, so for anyone because right now one of the things is, and I have quite a few people contacting me, they're sitting on cash, they don't know what to do, it's in the bank, they're getting, in some cases, negative interest rates, especially if they're in Europe. The banks are very wobbly. The stock markets are everywhere a bit frothy. The yields in terms of real estate in Western Europe are not high, in America either. In most markets globally, yields are quite low. So people are looking for alternatives, and real estate in Ukraine is a possibility, it's an option. But first of all, why should people even look at Ukraine?
Okay. Ukraine. Personally, I love Ukraine. Obviously, I'm here, but I wasn't forced to come here. I love Ukraine for several very important fundamental reasons. It's a large country. It's one of the largest countries in Europe. 40 million people. It's a developing country. What I like most about Ukraine from a personal business point of view is it's like I have a crystal ball when it comes to Ukraine. The economy and the cycles of the economy move up and down in what I think are very predictable fashion. I think I see a clear movement of Ukraine in the past was bouncing back and forth between Russia and the West as it was convenient for them. However, since the 2014, I'm not sure how we want to call it to be politically correct, but the eastern part of Ukraine perhaps becoming its own state or Russian involvement there, Ukraine, that has backfired, and I'm sure I don't want to create a lot. It's not about that, but there's no doubt the result of that, whatever you want to call it, is Ukraine moving definitively towards the West. And for the first time, not a political or even oligarch or business interest decision for this to happen, but a widespread voter base. The people here now are more and more dedicated and willing and working hard to move towards the West. And this I see on an everyday basis on the street. And of course, this has its mostly positives. I can't see very many minuses from it. It gives us the ability to predict where the market is going and what will be good investments in this country. Again, it's a very large population with an emerging middle class, an economy that was based on historically based on heavy industry in the Soviet Union. And recently, one of the most important decisions here is a move away from that incredibly useless heavy industry that dominated the economy here, and now more towards the service economy, towards IT.
I mean, was it a decision, or because I mean, a lot of that heavy industry was mostly in Eastern Ukraine and the parts that got taken over or that went away. So,
well, I would
say,
a
conscious decision, or do they just have to?
I guess they were forced to have to in the end, and that was what I was saying in 2014-15. That this was one of the great positives of what happened there is is you didn't have to cater to the voting public in maintaining old steel mills or old coal mines or old heavy industry that was frankly losing money and was completely providing products that were useless to anyone except for Belarus or Russia. And yes, what happened there did provide a catalyst for this movement. There's no doubt. I was hoping that this was going to happen anyways. Irregardless, that movement is now happening away from this massive employment. Anyways, I've already said heavy industry, right, to more of a service-based, IT-based economy and agricultural. The agriculture in its Black Earth, everyone talks about that. Sure, fine. But there was not a dedicated drive to creating, cash crops that could be exported to the EU or to markets where they could receive fair value. And no one talks about that. And that is really happening now, a move away from very basic commodity agricultural products that they sell to Russia at not at market prices, and increasingly cash crops like peppers or fruits or vegetables or corn or French fries or frozen vegetables or canned things that sell at many higher multiples and are far more profitable, and exporting it to the EU. There was recently historical Brexit trade agreement with the UK just signed, and agriculture is a big part of that. The economy is largely based on agriculture, and it could be really a great segment of the economy that could grow and could be very profitable for Ukraine going forward. I'm very positive on Ukraine, and I think I want to get into the micro as well. When I'm here in Ukraine, when I'm walking on the street here, when I'm dealing with businesses here, I see a real dedication to entrepreneurship, to caring about their business, to hard work, to, I mean, I don't know any other market in the world where I WhatsApp my lawyer on a Sunday afternoon and he answers me in 30 seconds. And you might not think that that's important, but that's massively important to small business, to an emerging economy, to an emerging middle class. I'm really impressed with the work ethic here and how business is developing in Ukraine.
Yeah, I see your point of view. The people are definitely an asset. I know people often say, "Oh, the people are the main asset of of whichever country we talk about."
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Okay.
But just specifically about Ukraine, it's true that when you compare the salaries of people with their potential output, it's actually quite incredible, the value for money that you can get.
It
you
is.
have all these young people that speak 2-3 languages that went to relatively decent universities, and that you can get for $600-$700 a month to be doing some relatively high-end jobs.
Yes.
So there's definitely potential for outsourcing, for basing operations in Ukraine, etc., and using all that gray matter. On the other hand,
sorry. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add one small thing. I mean, the entrepreneurial spirit is so incredibly strong, and I don't want to over exaggerate it, but we now have outsourced, if you want to call it, so much of our activities. There are so many entrepreneurs, property management, renovation, control, audit, inspection, valuation of the properties. Everything now is a small business with 3 or 4 or 5 employees, and they all speak English. They're all dedicated. They're all super hardworking. They're all, and I don't hesitate to say, very honest. They say their price, they do their work, they do a great job. I've never seen this in any other market where when you need the highest quality work done, you hire a company of 3 or 4 or 5 people, and they provide a superior product and a superior service at a reasonable cost in whatever language is convenient for you. I mean, I'm really enjoying the entrepreneurial spirit here. Yes.
It's the advantage of not having a social net. if people don't,
this is true.
If they don't work,
it gets you off your butt.
Yeah, they're on the street, and getting a government job is going to be what, $300 a month. A school teacher earns maybe what, $400 a month.
I don't think that much, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like $300-$400 a month, depending on seniority and which city, etc. So the opportunities that people have in Western Europe and increasingly in Central Europe as well, of just sitting back and not doing much, is just not an option at all in Ukraine. So people work, they know they don't have an option, and it results in people working hard and being trying their
Yeah,
best to be competent.
I guess you have the choice. People either give up. No one here has given up. Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm certainly impressed.
What about demographics? Because it's good to say
Mhm.
that the people are competent, they're good, they work hard. There's a lot of potential for services and more outsourcing, especially with the situation in Western Europe. The economy is a catastrophe.
Mhm.
Taxes are going to be raised to cover for everything. Companies are going to want to outsource even more. And now that they've signed all these trade agreements with Ukraine, it's just becoming ever easier by the day to just move operations from Western or Central Europe to Ukraine. What about
Absolutely.
demographics? Because I
What do you mean
remember
in regards? Mhm.
when I was a student, I did 1 year of study abroad in Lithuania, and then I'd go with friends we'd fly to Ukraine, and I
Right.
remember Kiev was a youthful city, a lot of young people, etc. But now
Yes.
when I go back to Kiev, it feels older. It feels less
Hmm.
youthful than it did before.
Interesting. I'm not sure if I feel that. However, I know for certain once that the visa requirement for the EU was dropped, um, a lot of people obviously started working, especially in Poland. And Poland has been very receptive to Ukrainian workers, as I don't know, Polish workers go to work in the UK, for example. And so the Ukrainian workers are replacing those. I have my own personal opinion on this, and I think that the statement I just made is a very, very high level top down view. What I'm seeing on the ground, what I'm seeing the actual impact of that is people that would be earning $500 a month in not the greatest jobs are relocating to Poland and repatriating thousands of dollars a month to support the economy in Ukraine. And I could go on for a long time about that, but that's really what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing people picking fruits, picking vegetables, cleaning rooms, et cetera, in Poland, and sending back multiples of what they would earn here in Ukraine to their families in Ukraine. Repatriation now is $1 billion a month, or it was.
Has it
Like,
been impacted by the coronavirus? Have flows been going
yeah,
down?
yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, there hasn't. I think they're delaying the figures on this for obvious reasons, but it's been cut probably by 40% at least. So, but we're still talking $600 a month. But literally, okay, we're already in October, but so 10 months ago, 9 months ago, it was increasing substantially every month, and we were over $1 billion a month in repatriated salaries to increasing living standards of people here in Ukraine who really
Mhm.
needed it, and increasing their purchasing power and moving them into the middle class, or however you want to put it. I've seen a great impact from this, and frankly, globalization, or whatever you want to call it, typically results in the economies of these countries leveling out against one another,
Mhm.
and that certainly doesn't hurt Ukraine. So I'm not as concerned about the losing of the smartest young people from Ukraine as would be presented perhaps in newspapers and things
Mhm.
like that. I'm still seeing uh, lots of entrepreneurial spirit here. I have no
Mhm.
doubt that with more freedom of movement, some smart people leave, but I'm not seeing this mass exodus of in
Okay.
any way. No, no.
And anyways, I mean, we saw it with Poland.
Right,
When it first opened up, they all went to Germany, to the UK, to Ireland,
right.
etc. And then once the economy started booming back home, and
Mm,
there was not enough labor anymore, and
mm.
salaries started to boom, they just went back. I mean,
Came
the
back.
market works this way. So if things
I
improve,
think so.
people come back.
I'm all for freedom of movement. If you're not concerned about your own specific country, freedom of movement tends to even things out across poor
Mhm.
countries and rich countries. So I'm in general for it, and I think it benefits Ukraine,
So talking about these capital flows from
right?
remittances, a lot
Mhm.
of it was going into, I was in Kiev last year in January. I spent some time there. I was looking at real estate, and a lot of it was flowing into real estate. So
Absolutely.
can you elaborate on the real estate market in Kiev? Why should people consider making an investment there?
Okay. Well, I think there's two really important things here. One is that Ukraine is a country people should be investing in. And I'm not going to go too much into this. My experience mostly in Ukraine was in investment banking. I did state privatizations, IPOs, started the stock market here. Okay, I did almost 15 years of that. And being beholden to political oligarchical interests your investments to make money is not my idea of sound investing. So I don't see that the stock market or any Ukrainian equities, to be perfectly honest, are a good investment, regardless of the fundamental profitability or a good.
I I
Sorry.
agree with you on this. When I
Yeah.
go to a country, I typically go there for a few weeks. I look around. I
Mhm.
say, cool. From a macro point of view, I like this country. How am I going to play it? Is it going to
Right.
be real estate, or is it going to be the
Right.
local stock market? Is it going to be bonds? How am I going to play this market?
Right.
And when I was quite excited about Ukraine, and then
Hmm.
I looked at the stock market, and there's nothing. There's no liquidity. There's nothing. So,
I know the
and I
stock
think
market very well.
there's nothing.
Nothing.
Like there's literally there's no liquidity. Nothing's
No.
happening. No transparency in terms of anything. There are, I
No.
think, like 2, 3 stock markets. Even there's not just one stock market. There's like a
Oh, and there's
few. It's a
Warsaw
mess.
listings and AIM listings and yes.
So the point is, and I thought that's what's really interesting is that when
Mhm.
Ukrainians have money,
Right.
they have nothing else to do other than to invest it into either a local business or into real estate. Um,
That.
they
Mhm.
they don't trust their banks. Too many banks went bust in the past. They
Yep.
certainly don't trust their currency. Even when they
No.
try to save in dollars, their banks might just take it at some point and go bust. They don't
Absolutely.
trust their government to be able to bail out the banks.
No.
There's no stock market. They don't really want to buy government bonds either. So there's nothing.
They can't. I mean, there's no mutual funds here. There's no stocks here. There's no retail investing here. There's no pension funds. There's
Yeah,
no pensions other than government. There is the flight to quality here is real estate.
yeah,
And that's due to several very important reasons. And like what I was saying, from an investor's point of view, you got to target which sector, and that's real estate. But also from the bottom up point of view, what people move to as a solid investment, what the individual person here wants to invest in is real estate. And as I was going to say, that's for a couple of reasons. One, there's a massive shortage of housing here in especially Kiev, and that drives the market massively. Kiev has.
It-
Sorry, go ahead.
what's the official population Kiev and what is the unofficial population of Kiev? Because the two numbers are quite different.
They are. I mean, the last official number I heard was 3 million. However, they've estimated in the last couple of years due to Eastern Ukraine, etc., and general movement, 4 million. Now we're talking including outside areas, but Kiev doesn't really have. We're talking almost 5 million now, and
And by European standards, that is a huge, huge city. Like
it's
Vienna is less than 2 million, for example,
yeah.
Budapest as well. So
I would
4 or
have to
5
guess.
million is big. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, you. This is another number, like square meters of residential per person per capita here is now into 14 square meters per person. I mean, you get a bathroom per
Wow.
person. And this is due to very many reasons. I mean, there's a massive pent up demand for housing here. Um, People believe in real estate. People were forced during the Soviet Union to live with multiple families, to live many people in a house. There's a real desire to have your own apartment, to have your own real estate. Now with the It's the flight to quality. It really is. And I think the Soviet Union, at least this is my opinion, and I really do believe this. The Soviet Union, there was no salaries or what have you. You got your real estate for free. This created, the only value was the location of your real estate. And when you were in a high position, you got your real estate, you got your apartment in the center of Kiev. And that's why we concentrate on the center of Kiev. There is a real social belief. And when you tell your friends, when you talk to people, everyone wants to buy as close to the center of Kiev as possible, as it's perceived to be so much higher, it's more prestigious. And this drives a lot of the decision making in real estate and the relocation to Kiev from the regions, which is what we're seeing a lot of recently.
For the audience, when you were mentioning people from Eastern Ukraine coming, it's all the war refugees essentially that are coming to Kyiv because the cities in the east are having issues. So that's resulted in a massive influx of people coming from the rest of the country.
Probably, I mean, let's split the difference. Probably, to be fair, about half of Eastern Ukraine was happy to stay and half moved into Ukraine and into Kiev mostly. I mean, if you're going to choose a place, you would choose Kiev.
In terms of, you mentioned people really focus on the core center. Is it just because they want to be in the center, or is it because they want historical buildings? What's the reason for this?
I really think it is a social prestige issue. Anyone with money, I mean, I'm from Canada. As you start to earn more money, you want to buy a bigger house in Canada. In Kiev, you want to buy closer to the center of Kiev, or even in Ukraine, you want to buy closer to the center of Kiev.
So
I feel you have a question.
So we're saying that prices dropped by what percentage since the peak?
70-80%.
Okay, I think so.
We're seeing real compression of the market, though. I mean,
so for my audience, this is why I was looking at real estate in Kyiv. The prices dropped 70 to 80% from peak. With the peak was like 2009, 2010, I think, around that.
Yeah, actually, I can share a slide with you in regards to that.
When I saw this, prices dropped 70 to 80% in a market with people that have a cultural affinity to real estate, and I don't really have any other option, with a lot of remittances suddenly coming in because people can move easily to the European Union. They can travel there easily since 2-3 years ago. So that's what really spiked my interest. Great. So wow. So bubble time from 2001 to 2008. Did you personally buy real estate in 2001, John?
I bought real estate in 2003. We bought 5 apartments. I remember and I don't want to say that this is going to happen again, but we bought 2. I remember we bought 100 square meters for 110,000 and 110 square meters for 100,000, and we sold both places for 760,000.
This is ridiculous. This is like looking at some like gold mining stocks.
It is, and I didn't expect it, and I more didn't expect that it would be possible to perhaps do it again. I think the whole world saw something in 2007, 2008 that was ridiculous. No question. However, if you look at the chart, I don't want to speculate, but I mean, something around 4,000 certainly doesn't seem ridiculous, and 6,000 seems to be even sort of a resistance level that around 2011 came down to, and then paused in just before the invasion of Ukraine, was hovering around $6,000 per square meter. And again, this is prime center of Kiev.
Yeah, because if you go in the outskirts, you can find stuff for like $700-800 a square meter, 900.
You can. Well, yeah, but that would be very, very unrenovated and perhaps not even a finished building. It depends.
4,000, you find something, but it's finished.
Certainly. And this is resulted also. I wanted to mention the compression of the market. I mean, in 2001, And now cheap apartments are $1,000 per square meter, and the best apartments are $2,000 per square meter. In the peak, bad apartments were $1,500 a square meter, and the best apartments were $10,000 a square
Yeah.
meter. So you get this. Right now,
Yeah.
we're seeing massive compression of the market, where good places, the best places, are twice the price of nowhere. So I
Yeah,
see
it's a good
great.
looking chart from a technical point of view, and that's also I find what makes Kiev real estate appealing. It's look, the country has gone through a boom and a bust. It's gone through two revolutions. It's gone through mass immigration of a big part of its population. It
Yes.
has war in the east. Crimea is gone. It had inflation, very strong inflation for a few years. And this is like prices just don't go below these current levels. Like anyone who had a weak hand has sold. All the weak hands are gone. So now people have the real estate, the current real estate, they're strong hands. They don't want to sell no matter what. So it's really, it's like the bottom. But the question is, will it go back up? But at least there is downside protection.
Well, I think one thing that's incredibly different from most markets is the lack of mortgage lending, credit leverage, however you want to call it. This results in two things. One, at the bottom of the market.
So you're saying entirely cash, the market?
I have not seen or heard of, or we have a lot of property. We go to a bank and ask for a mortgage and they say, sure, 27%. So I have not heard of a mortgage in 12 years. So if you can imagine the pent up demand, what, I don't want to speculate, what could happen to a market when there is lending under 10%, which would still be high. This results in two things. One, when the market comes down, there's no holding costs as well. No one has.
What's the rate now?
Well, there's no rate because there's no loans. Zelensky, which we might want to get into, is promising sub 10% lending by the end of the year, but now that was
So
4 months ago.
The president
Correct.
is promising sub 10%. Okay.
He was, and he was dedicated to making this so. National Bank of Ukraine Prime is now 6%, which is a historical low. It's never been that low ever, even including the Soviet Union. And that's also for a couple of reasons. One, remittances from Poland were supporting the currency so they could lower the interest rate quite substantially and not devalue the currency, but also in an attempt to create lending, both for businesses and for property, for mortgages. This is our clear catalyst. Just get briefly into this. I don't see a more clear catalyst for any other investment that I've ever made. There has been no lending for 12 years. Lending has to return at some point. Once lending returns, I see a very big impact on the market.
Yeah,
and
that's a big catalyst. That's a big catalyst. If it does take place, that's a huge catalyst.
I would expect it to happen in the next 12 to 18 months, sub 10%. Of course, it depends on the world economic cycle and everything else. But at least we have a very clear, identifiable catalyst for this market.
You were talking about carry costs as well.
Yeah, there's just simply no carrying costs here. So the market is firm at $1,000 a meter for something okay, and around $2,000 a meter for the prime. No one is forced to sell for lower than that, and that's why you're seeing really over the last 5 years not going below that. Property taxes are practically zero. No one has any loans. No one has any interest. No one. They literally just mothball their apartments and wait for better days if they can. And the apartments that we're buying are typically people that put their money into real estate. A lot of people in Kiev have more than one apartment, 2 or 3 apartments. And what they're doing is they're selling their third apartment, or if they have to, their second apartment. But that has more dried up in the residential sector recently. I think it's due to the fact that there's simply no carrying costs and no real driving force to force people to sell at a price lower than what you're seeing now.
And what's been the impact of COVID on the real estate market?
Well, two things. Residential rents have come down, definitely. 10%, perhaps 20%. It depends. I wouldn't say that's as much a demand-driven price decrease as people simply taking advantage of their perceived increase in bargaining power. We had some of the embassies renegotiate with us, but we're fully occupied. We haven't had any problems, real problems with. We had one apartment rented to the Canadian police that were training Ukrainian police here, and they got recalled on a diplomatic order to return to Canada, so they left our apartment. Other than that, we've had long-term leases with diplomatic.
So on
and
average, in your portfolio, rents have gone down by how much, percentage-wise?
All of our rents are 4-year contracts with embassies, so they're fixed. So a couple of the properties have come down by 10 or 20%. Overall, we're perhaps down just under 10% on rents in the last couple of months, and even half of that is just pure temporary discounts. Can you please give us a small discount while the COVID is going on, and we'll talk again in 3 months. So, and we're happy to do that to keep people dedicated to using our properties and not leaving the properties. So
sure, of course, yeah. When you have quality tenants, you want to keep them.
On the sales price, we're seeing prices going up recently as this flight to quality. So we're seeing especially
so lower yields. Rents are going down, prices are going up, lower yields.
Yes. Our first fund, we achieved our goal of 12% gross yields. We got 12.1%. I would say now fair yields are 9 to 10%. And you can verify this both with sales prices as well. Yeah, I would say we're more around 9 to 10% cap rate as opposed to previously 12%.
Okay.
Which is good.
I mean, I can't think of any European market apart from Moldova, which I would stay away from in terms of real estate investment with such yields.
Okay, yeah, I just gotta put a caveat here. I mean, we're concentrating on I mean, if you were to ask a Ukrainian or you were to put on Facebook these numbers, they would say, that's crazy. Yeah, sure. Almost 95% of the rental market is very old apartments that did a renovation 40 years ago, and you can rent them very cheap. We concentrate on the best areas of Kiev, and we do a very good renovation, and we cater to foreigners and to foreign embassies, and we get a premium as a result.
Isn't the risk, because I've seen this in a lot of markets, people, target premium because, they want the embassy clients and the expats, etc. So, but it's a game that becomes crowded very quickly. So it might work well for a few years, but then other people pick up on it, other people with money. And what people with money love to do is to make nice apartments, and they like to rent to quality tenants, like embassy people. So suddenly you end up with oversupply in a very tiny market. Is that a risk in your opinion?
I'll never disagree with a general worldwide trend, and I would agree with you. However, with no mortgage lending, no one has $500,000 to buy an apartment, but no one has $20,000 to do a renovation. We are seeing newly renovated properties are non-existent, and especially larger, more expensive apartments, there's such a lack of them in the market. I mean, Ladislaus, a lot of this is absolutely dependent upon mortgage lending. And the return of mortgage lending, I would absolutely agree with you. And it's our main catalyst. And shortly after some sort of reasonable, not even widely, generally people are borrowing money and buying properties, we would look to exit the residential sector in our first fund. We are increasingly moving now towards office and the IT industry, where we are. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's what I want to ask about your strategy for your current fund. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have to be opportunity driven, and 2014 saw whatever happened in Eastern Ukraine, and the UK, the US, the EU embassies here in Kiev doubling or tripling their staff, and a lot of advisors, economic advisors, reform advisors, tax advisors, government advisors, military advisors, military personnel, and we were catering to those types of tenants. That was a relatively temporary thing. 5 years later, we benefited quite well as a result of reading that trend. I'm happy to move away from that. What's happening now in the office sector with an incredible lack of office here, and I know the press on office worldwide, that's absolutely fine. It's not the case in Kiev that there's too much office. It's, again, another sector, one of the lowest. There's no offices available here, and there's no better. One of the best signs of that is we're not actually buying offices. We're buying large apartments. And due to the fact that there's such an incredible lack of office here, the city of Kiev and the government of Ukraine have dropped all zoning requirements, and you can put an office in a residential apartment.
Oh, wow.
With no restrictions.
Nice.
Other than, 10 o'clock at night, it can't be loud. You got to be nice to your neighbors, that types of things. But there is no restriction whatsoever against, no real restrictions against putting an office in a residential space. So we're not buying offices. We're buying 350 square meter apartments. We're immediately subdividing them into 2 apartments of 150, 160 meters each.
So are those apartments communalny apartments that you buy typically?
Actually, we look at quite a few of them. Oh, yeah. God. Yeah, something around 300 meters.
Can you, just for our audience, just for fun, can you elaborate on can you give us 20 seconds, 30 seconds on what a communalny is?
I could show you a floor plan. It's like a long 300 square meters of like 10 rooms. 300 square meters would be 10 families, yeah. 30, 40 people, and just crazy. And a long hallway, and every door has a 3 or 4 locks on it, and behind every door is a family, and one kitchen with maybe 5 or 6 stoves, because they get into huge arguments, and you can't use my stove and I can't use your stove, and 3 sinks, and arguing over the bathroom. And it's interesting. But
those were the old communist communal apartments. So families would have each their own bedroom, and the toilet and the kitchen would be common. So those are often quite cheap per square meter, because you need to get all owners because they each own a percentage of the apartment.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
All of them.
Well, not only because you have to be very careful, because if one guy doesn't sell, you're in trouble. So you have to organize them all in the room and sit them all down, and everyone signs at the same time, and you pay everyone at the same time. And it's good fun. Yeah, it's very interesting. That is not for the faint of heart, certainly, and not for someone who isn't prepared with the legal team to be able to transact that. And
yeah,
I mean, especially there. I mean, in every market in the world, there's little things like whether there's children registered at the apartment and that kind of thing. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you had mentioned in the past that you wanted to talk about as well whether people could individually invest here in Kiev or not.
Yeah.
This is perhaps, I don't know, it's tough for me because I never want to discourage someone to try. And I do find it easy to invest here. But because I have the legal and the broker and the community contacts that make my life so much easier. It's a very difficult market to invest as there's not a lot of reliance upon doing things legally. And I don't think that that's an intent to do things illegally. It's simply a lack of knowledge and a lack of established procedure on how to properly transfer ownership of a property. And it's very, very common for people to sell an apartment in a historical building without historical approval, for example. Mm-hmm. And at any time, the historical committee can reverse that sale for any reason, and you lose your apartment. In theory, you would get your money back, whatever you paid, but you would lose your apartment. And or illegal renovations in historical buildings, or illegal use, or illegal changes of the walls on the inside, or a child registered in the apartment under 18 years old has the right to live there until they're 18, regardless of who owns the apartment. So it's not that it's complicated or easy to it's very easy to control these risks. We control them without any problem whatsoever, but it's knowing these risks and knowing how to deal with these risks and identifying them. And a lot of foreign buyers that I've seen come here, and they're very experienced in other markets, just simply, I don't want to say that people lie to them, but they just, the brokers even the lawyers or even the notaries don't really know the law, and they're not really concerned about it. And you want to buy the property, okay, I'll sell you the property, but it can have some pretty significant problems with the title, and as a result, be quite
banking as well. There are banking issues. Getting the money in properly through the proper channels so that you don't get stuck with the money in Ukraine later, because Ukraine has capital controls. So it's important to invest the proper way, or else later you just cannot get your money out. Then you find yourself on the black market trying to buy some Bitcoin.
Yeah, there was a Bitcoin embassy here. But I mean, absolutely, these risks are easily controlled. I mean, we set up, we do an advisory service for people that most likely speak Russian. They may be foreign, but they speak Russian. They have maybe a Ukrainian wife, or they travel to Ukraine quite often. They understand the market and they understand the risks. We set up investment bank accounts for them. We control how the money is transferred into Ukraine, how the money from that bank account is used to purchase the apartment, to pay for legal fees, etc. And as a result, it's very easy for them to get the money out of the country. But if you don't have that advice, or you don't have that control over how you purchased the apartment, oh, no problem, just send me the money to my bank account, or just bring me cash, it's not a big deal, everyone does it, everyone does do it, but
yeah,
they're not concerned about getting their money back to France or Germany. You are. Yeah. So yeah,
very true. Let's talk about can you show us some case studies and some numbers related to your first fund, so the results of your first fund, and then I'd like to have an overview also of your second fund, because there are two funds. One is closed, it's ongoing essentially, and the other fund is the one that the Kiev Real Estate Recovery Fund 2 is the one that you launched, I think, last year or 2 years ago.
This year, we've launched it this year. We've raised money this year, and we continue to raise money into next year.
Okay. Cool. So what are we looking at here? That's from Fund 1, the one that people cannot buy into, but it's a result essentially.
This is absolutely correct. This is actually the last purchase. Well, perhaps let's start with this. This is a more normal purchase that we made in Fund 1, a residential apartment that we purchased early in 2018. A beautiful residential apartment with a good history. It was a massage parlor, and the neighbors wanted it to be gone, and we purchased it for a good price. Was
the staff included?
No, I'd love to show you the renovation. It was an Egypt style renovation. There was lots of pyramids. It was unbelievable. Anyways, we bought 200 meters here for $258,000 in prime location. So just over $1,000 a meter, $1,200 a meter. We put in a very nice renovation here of just over $100,000.
So a full renovation, so that's including electricity, pipes.
Yes.
Was that an old building or?
Yes, this is a historical building. All our renovations are complete renovations. And I like to say, when we replace the floor, we don't replace the floor, we replace the floor.
Yeah, because I've done renovations in old historical buildings in Central Europe. And yeah, literally you destroy everything. There is nothing left. So you do a full renovation for less than $600 a square meter.
That's correct, and that's
competitive.
That's an expensive renovation.
Okay, wow. Yeah, because I see large windows, everything. It's not.
Yep. We put in floor.
Is not cheap either.
Yep. No, best quality. Put in all the best quality electrical systems, ABB, all the 3-phase, new kitchens, custom bathrooms, multiple bedrooms, multiple bathrooms. We do a really good renovation. I'm really proud of them. It's worth it. We're trying to get the embassy tenants there that pay in hard currency, and as a result, we rented this apartment to an EU embassy. for $4,200 a month, which is an implied gross yield of 13.5%.
So yeah, because it's one of the I want to discuss this as one of the main risks in Ukraine is the currency. I think in 2011 the currency was at what? Actually, let me check if I can share the screen here.
I would guess 17.
It'll stop your screen sharing.
That's okay.
Okay, so this is the Ukrainian hryvnia versus the USD. So
Yep.
approximately 6 per USD up to late 2000, early 2014, and then it just collapsed. Since then, it's been a bit flat, but it's not like it doesn't
Yep.
inspire confidence. So how do you mitigate this risk, or how do you integrate it in your strategy?
Right. Well, first of all, it's mostly predictable. I mean,
Then why
that's
aren't you a Forex trader?
well, I am here in Ukraine. Yeah, but I agree with you. Forex trading is I don't know a single. I ask for dollar euro advice all the time and don't get anything of value. What you're seeing, it is a risk. The real estate market obviously is impacted by real wages, for example, because people are paid in hryvnias and buy property in dollars. And the hryvnia collapsing results in the inability of the middle class to purchase property, to purchase real estate. The real estate market is entirely denominated in dollars. Everything on every brokerage site is quoted in dollars. Yeah. Everything's $1 per square meter. Even every contract is in dollars and is, with a small caveat at the bottom, the actual purchase price will be paid in hryvnias at the US dollar exchange rate on the day of purchase. So the hryvnia amount of the purchase isn't even determined until the date you pay. So to say that the hryvnia isn't a risk would be wrong, because like I said, it impacts the buying ability of real estate by real people. But the real estate market is denominated in euros. All of our rental contracts are either in dollars or in euros. Sometimes they pay us actually in hryvnias, but the hryvnia amount they pay us in rent changes every single month according to the currency. So there's no fixed hryvnia rental payment. It's a fixed dollar payment, and they pay us the corresponding amount of hryvnias every month.
Okay, so you hedge it by targeting a market that pays essentially in Forex.
That is correct.
Currency. Okay.
Absolutely. Great. This is one of our residential places. I don't know if
but $20 a square meter, that's a very high rent.
Yep.
That's very high.
We even in office and residential, we average $20 per square meter. The difference.
I just question the sustainability of it. Because for example, in Budapest, you get prime for 12 euros. So 13, 14, and Budapest is not as big, but it's wealthier, etc. So looking at 20, I would just question, where's the upside in terms of rent? I don't see any upside in terms of rent.
I don't think there's any upside in terms of rent. No, I would see cap rates fall. So I would see rent being maintained, but the price of the property increasing dramatically.
Okay, so you make your good cash flow, and then later on you flip it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I would hope for a cap rate of 6%, which would imply at least a double. Our estimated sales price here of $3,000 per square meter, I would say that's very realistic. We have another property on Perizna. We have not signed the contract. However, we have printed the contract for $2,978 per square meter. So $3,000 per square meter in central Kiev with a good renovation is very realistic. As you can see, our total in for our apartments averages about $2,000 per square meter. For this case, it's $1,850. We're up about 50% on all our purchases, and are getting rents around averaging 12% gross.
Nice. Okay.
It's good.
Great. Next one.
Yeah. This was the. That's our second fund. This was the first office that we did in Fund 1, which was actually the very last purchase we made, and was in late 2018, and has proved our case model that the move to office was the right choice. We bought 320 square meters, very central Kiev. This is when we subdivided into 2 apartments of 160 square meters, but didn't do the renovation. We did now, this is the big difference and the big reason to do office.
Yeah, because like
Sure,
everyone's saying no one's doing office anymore, nowhere in the world. What's so different in Kyiv? What is so different that it actually makes it not just an all right investment, but a
Yep.
great one?
Absolutely. Vacancy for office is 4%. A massive shortage of office.
In what levels? Like grade A, grade B? What
There
grade
is no
office?
grade A. In Kiev, there's grade B and lower. Like I said, the government has allowed residential to become office due to the massive shortage. The increase in the IT industry. Just in the last 2 months, several thousand IT professionals from Minsk, due to what's going on in Belarus, have relocated to Kiev. We're seeing outsourcing moving to Ukraine. I was a bit doubtful 10 years ago whether it would happen. It is absolutely happening. It's the salaries are high, and it's driving office rents. We have had no problem whatsoever renting this office, or in the second fund, our first property was an office. We rented it within 2 weeks, exactly for the target we wanted. We got 19% gross yield on that place.
Wow.
We have,
That's insane. Those are insane numbers. So the rent per square meter here is $19. So I don't know much about the office market generally. It's not something I've been dealing with. What European capitals would this be similar with? Are we
none.
looking at like Warsaw rates? Are we looking at Romanian rates, Hungary,
I mean,
Berlin?
rent per square meter would be substantially lower in every other market, simply due to the fact that, I mean, again, you come back to lending, and anytime you're seeing yields of 18%, you borrow money and you build an office. Well, that's what happens anywhere. You can't do that here. And although there's large construction, residential construction companies can pre-sell apartments and get some sort of financing as a result and build lower class residential buildings, in office, you can't pre-sell it. There is no financing available to build an office building. This year has shocking construction numbers, the number of meters that are coming online for office. It's nowhere near servicing the market, and the COVID has had an impact, but nowhere near anywhere else, and nowhere near what we even expected here, as the demand for offices has, in general, with the economy, gone up this year. Although people are using less offices, it's still balanced out. At the beginning of the year, tenancy vacancy was 4%. Now it's 5 or 6% at most.
Okay.
We see sustained demand.
Okay. I'm looking at the pictures here. I see something. It's what, Suggitt Premium Property Services. So is that another business you have?
This is an interesting question. One of our biggest problems here in Ukraine has been the brokerage industry. And this is a result of there is no licensing for brokers. There's no training required. There's no license for the business. They accept and no liability whatsoever. They provide no information on the market. As a result, and they are very spoiled. The average brokerage commission here is 5%, both on purchase and sale of residential real estate, and and 3/4 of a month of rent to rent an apartment. I tried for years to get a brokerage agency to work with us in any sort of proper way. I couldn't even get them to view the apartment before we viewed it. The quality of brokerage service here is shockingly bad. And as a result, I just literally had no, listen, I don't want to, we provide brokerage services for the fund. There's no question.
Okay.
This is allowed as per the prospectus of the fund.
Okay.
The normal
If
brokerage rate.
people who want to invest want to see the contract between
Sure.
Suggitt Premium Property Services and the KRER fund, can they have access to it?
Absolutely, no problem at all. We're absolutely.
That's all I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, we cover we on average charge 2.75-3%, which is substantially less than the market's 5%. We simply needed to control the information flow and the transaction of property, and we couldn't find a broker that was able and willing to do that for us. Almost all of the commissions that result from this just go to hiring employees to research the market and to help us find new objects to buy, help us to sell, and help us to rent. We're now able to directly contact the embassies, directly contact foreign businesses, have established relationships with them. I mean, this was a necessary, unfortunate step.
So what have been the results of your first fund?
The results of our first fund are like I've said, we've achieved 12% gross yield. We are a small fund and we're a fund, so we have costs in Cyprus and fund costs. We have dividend payments. We hope for 8 to 9% dividend payments annually. We're looking at 7 to 8%.
And if you're going to liquidate all the properties now, the capital gains would be
about 40% over purchase.
About 40%. Okay, cool. Now, Fund 2, can you elaborate on Fund 2?
Absolutely. Fund 2, this is the first property we purchased for Fund 2. A 3-level penthouse on the top floor of a brand new residential building where we bought 330 square meters for $280,000, so under $1,000 per meter.
Wow.
Yeah, I was very happy about this purchase. And renovation was under $400 per meter and able to rent it out again for $20 per square meter, which is what we're averaging. So implied gross yield 19%, 18.9%. This is the direction we're going for Fund 2. We are going to concentrate on office until I mean, so many square meters of office space needs to come online immediately to meet the demand. This is a multi-year trend. I'm not going to say it's a 10-year trend, but for the life of this fund for 5 years, I would say that this is the thing to buy. I would like to say that, you know, I do see retail space, ground level retail space, storefront space as being one of the best possible markets. Obviously, it's destroyed right now. One would look for return of retail business, buying it very cheap because retail is destroyed right now, and reaping the benefits. I think I was hoping by this year we would be buying retail, but obviously with COVID, that's pushed it out a year or two at least. But I would look for Fund 3, Fund 1 for mostly residential, Fund 2 for mostly office, and Fund 3 for mostly retail if things keep moving forward. Yeah.
So what's your target for Fund 2?
For Fund 2, we're looking for gross yields a minimum of 18%. We're seeing some properties with a little bit more than that. I think 18% is achievable. We will.
Can you show us a slide on Fund 2? Do you have a slide on that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. This is some general information of what Fund 2 is about.
Who's your auditor? Do you have an auditor?
Yeah, we use a Cube audit in Cyprus who audits the fund. The fund is fully registered, an EU registered fund with a ISIN number, a fully regulated alternative investment fund manager, Byron Capital Partners, who is an award-winning alternative investment fund manager in the EU. The fund was set up by KPMG. We have a fund administrator. The depository is Bank of Cyprus. So the bank who oversees every single cent and where it goes and what is done with it. And we are registered and listed on the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. It's important to note that the fund it was started in Cyprus due to its low cost and due to dual tax agreements between Ukraine and Cyprus. The fund is fully EU 28 passportable, which means you could immediately move the fund to Germany for cost and have it be a German fund.
So when you say 18%, is that like in people's pockets? Are there withholding taxes? Is there something, or is it just 18%?
No, that's gross yield. I mean, I'd like to show the top line number. We're looking for dividends. On the next slide, you can see here our targeted dividends are 10% annually. 10%, I would hope more like 12%. On paper, I'd like to say 10%. We're targeting IRR of 25% over 5 years. So that's a double, a little bit more than a double over 5 years. I would certainly hope that these numbers are higher. I think these numbers are conservative. One thing I really should say and reiterate that Ukraine's a risky market. However, in an investment opportunity where you have the opportunity to very reasonably double or triple cap gains and have a 10% dividend annually, I would expect far more risk than what I think fund offers.
I agree. And there's no leverage. It's also the
leverage.
Fund is all cash.
All
so
cash.
It's not like it's a 10% dividend with a whole bunch of
fun math,
creative financing, etc.
Exactly. The market's as low as it goes. I look at the dividends also as downside risk. I mean, if the worst possible thing happens, you get 10% annually. And we sell. A ridiculous situation would be prices coming down 20%. So you get 40% in dividends, and we saw, you're still up in the end. Which in an investment where you can double or triple your money, having very little downside risk, I'm personally invested. Let's put it that way.
May I ask how much you've raised up to now?
We had our first closing in January 1st of 2020. We have quarterly closings. In the first closing, we raised $1.5 million, and we had $1.5 million committed for March 30th, 2020. However, COVID ended that, and all investment has been on hold. We are now seeing, especially probably mid-September until now, a greatly increased interest in investment. And it looks by the end of the year like we'd be able to raise at least another $1.5 million. But we are, so we'll have 3 million by the end of the first year. We are very much dedicated to having the fund of 10 million euros by the end of next year.
How much have you invested of your own money in the fund?
In the first closing, I invested, myself and John Crockett and Shane Sorek, who are the three partners of the first fund. The three of us have invested quite substantially in Fund 1. Over 10% of the fund is us. And in this, I personally invested $75,000 in the first closing of this fund, and I'm looking to put more in this year.
And the other gentleman?
The other gentleman took a step back. They put in 5 years of hard work on Fund 1, and they are happy with their investment in Fund 1. They're now in Cyprus working. So although they're still involved as an advisory and on the investment board, and John Crockett is also a director of the fund. They're great partners. They've gone back to work in the last little while.
Yeah, because just for a typical European, for example, if you put 125, the minimum investment, 125,000 euros, that gets you 1,000 euros a month. Getting that in rent from a normal property in Western Europe, cash, you'd probably have to invest, like 300,000 euros to get numbers like this. So, and the potential for capital gains would be a lot lower. So, I see your pitch. It's attractive. It's an attractive pitch.
And it's at the bottom of the market. A lot of other markets They're at the top of the market, but yeah.
Americans, can U.S. persons invest in the fund?
They can. Both John Crockett and Shane Sorg are American.
Okay.
We have experience releasing the tax form that is required as a minority shareholder of a foreign company to the U.S. Tax authorities. So that's not a problem whatsoever. I believe we have a substantial number of American investors in the first fund, and one American investor, a substantial American investor in the second fund. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Not as big a problem as people think.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Great. Well, John, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was very interesting.
Myself as well. Good to talk to you.
All right. And to my audience, so you had a very interesting presentation from John in terms of the Kiev real estate market. If you want more information on the fund, you can check out his website. The link will be below the video, and you can reach out to him, send him an email. He can send you all the details, the PowerPoint slide, etc. If you prefer to go to Kiev yourself and invest yourself, I can also put you in touch with Alex. He's an independent, he's a buyer's agent, goes around, can find the property based on your specifications, and then take care of renovations, etc. But to be upfront, the yields would definitely not be big as in the fund. So two very different investment options. Great, John. Thank you.
Great to talk to you, Auditor.
Bye.
Take care. Talk to you soon.